Yana Gilbuena is a Philippine-born, critically acclaimed, ancestrally taught chef. She started SALO series as a way to educate folks about the history, culture, and rich heritage embedded in Filipino cuisine. Her work seeks to celebrate the beautiful pre-colonial tradition of eating with one's hands, called kamayan, and disrupt the Western constructs of dining. Her pioneering odyssey of bringing Filipino cuisine and kamayan to all 50 states in 50 weeks and beyond the US to Canada, Mexico, Colombia, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and her home country, the Philippines, has influenced the trajectory of the popularity and awareness of the Filipino food movement. She is a 2017 Stone Barns Exchange Fellow, a 2021 Real Food, Real Stories Facilitator, a 2021 May Writing Fellow, and has also been featured in major publications such as the New York Times, SF Chronicle, National Geographic, and more. She's been published in the Cherry Bomb Cookbook, Feed the Resistance, and published her own in March of 2019 called No Forks Given. With that, Yana, will you share your story with us?
Yes, thank you so much for holding this space, and I'm very honored to be here to share my story with you. I didn't lose a grandma when my Lola died. I lost a grandma, a mom, a dad, my home, my identity, and in a way, myself. It was a damp, foggy day in Brooklyn when I got a phone call that changed the trajectory of my life. My mom called to let me know my Lola passed away in the Philippines that morning. I was devastated. Then dread washed over me. I knew I won't be able to go home. I had just depleted my savings to move cross country, basically to escape a toxic relationship with my mom. So I swallowed my pride and asked my mom for help. But her response was, if you were just a doctor, you could have gone home to your Lola's funeral. I'm not going to lend you any money. This is going to be on your conscience. Harsh, I know. Call it Tiger Mom, but it's really a projection of intergenerational expectations within the Filipino diaspora. I didn't respond to that. I mean, how could I? I just let the silence hang like that fog, mostly because I knew that my voice would break just as my heart did. All I really wanted was a hug and to be held, but I knew I wasn't going to get it from her. With my Lola gone, my last and only bond with my mom was severed. This wasn't my first time grieving or going through a loss. My first loss was when my dad left me and my mom 3 days after I was born. The second one was just a year after, when my mom emigrated to the US to be able to provide me with a better future. Children of folks in the diaspora were taught that leaving was okay. A matter of fact, it was the norm. I am a textbook example of a child of brain drain, the mass exodus of educated and able folks who leave their families in third world countries in search for better and brighter futures elsewhere. With both parents gone, my Lola took on those responsibilities on top of being a grandmother and became my family trifecta. She was my home, my world, my everything. When I finished college, it was unwillingly my turn to be part of the brain drain. It felt like an uprooting, a sudden tectonic shift. Folks who immigrated or emigrated rarely talk about the grief and pain of leaving their home. It is a different kind of loss, a loss of identity, a loss of belonging. For me, how can I be a Filipino if I'm not in the Philippines? How do I retain my identity and heritage in a country where being who you are means you're other, you're different? It was a hard transition. I was immediately fed the model minority myth. Work hard, keep your head down, and you'll achieve the coveted American dream. There was no time to grieve that loss of sense of self. There was only time for pulling myself up in my own bootstraps, whatever that means. So I lost myself in work. I hustled and found distractions so that grief didn't find me. The year after my Lola passed, I found myself cooking more, a way of survival, but also therapy. I didn't think it would be my calling until I saw a need for education and representation of Filipino cuisine. So I willingly took on the burden of the cross to bring the gospel of Filipino food to every single state. Leaving each city each week was a mini uprooting. I went on the extreme immersion to desensitize and maybe reevaluate my meaning of home. What is home now that I don't have a physical place? Who am I now that I don't belong anywhere? Being abandoned from a young age made me think escapism was a cure. When I was traveling and cooking, I just put a band aid on those feelings. I compartmentalized them under the guise of the hustle mentality of, I don't have time for this. I was nonstop since 2013 until the world screeched to a halt. I had no option but to stop, sit, and stew. This is when I was forced to finally reckon with my own grief and loss experiences. I gave myself permission to feel, to not drown or subdue these feelings with productivity, but actually embrace them as they come. I told myself it was okay to cry every day. It was okay to do nothing but watch the Great British Bake Off, huddled in blankets on the couch, eating cheese puffs until all 11 seasons were done. It was okay to not be okay. I realized that I wasn't alone or unique in my experience of grieving at a distance. I also realized how unprepared we all are for death and so ill equipped to deal with loss and grief. Experiencing this collective grief led me to the path of becoming a death doula. With each exercise of vulnerability, holding space, and being present, I slowly unraveled my own myths and misconceptions about grief and dying. We were all sold into this concept that we should have a deadline for grieving, a return to normalcy, to get rid of or get over these feelings and not be a Debbie Downer at dinner parties. But grieving is different for everybody. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, nor is it a competition. This imposed structure doesn't give us the space and time to process at all. I learned that grieving is a practice. We never stop grieving a loved one, just like we never stop loving them when they're gone. The solution is not fight or flight, but rather feeling. Embracing grief and opening myself up to all of this was healing. I realized I was able to channel home through food. So when I cook and say, I want to share the taste of home, what I really mean is, I want you to know the love I had, my Lola's love for me. I wasn't cooking to escape grief. I was cooking to share the love of and for my Lola, as well as keeping her alive through me. Cooking became my grief practice and grief medicine. This practice taught me that home has always been with me, inside of me. We don't lose our loved ones when they die. They live through us, their spirit, their essence, and their impact. We are not only witnesses to their lives, but also carriers of their values and stories. We are the embodiment of their legacy. Thank you.